Right, so the EFF held the plenum as it begins to set priorities for the year ahead. The party has been very critical of President Ramaphosa over the years. During his address, EFF leader said there were no verifiable plan to fix the current load shedding in the country. For more on this, we now joined in studio by SABC news reporter Samkele Maseko. Thank you for your time, Sam. So a lot has essentially been happening on the political calendar thus far. So let's start here. The EFF leader Julius Malema says the EFF is terminating its relationship with the IFP. What does this mean that the EFF is terminating its relationship with the IFP?
It means that the EFF in all municipalities where the IFP governs in KwaZulu-Natal, where the EFF has deputy mayors, municipalities such as Umhlathuze, municipalities such as Gwamaphumulo out in the Ilembe district municipality, the AFF is now pulling out of that relationship. Julius Malema directed all EFF deputy mayors under the leadership of IFP-run municipalities to resign with immediate effect. And where the IFP raise its ugly head, in the words of Julius Malema, the EFF must reject the IFP in all municipalities where the EFF has a role to play in those municipalities, going on to the coalition governments that are being formed in Gauteng municipalities and Metro, saying they will not want the IFP anywhere near government in Ekurhuleni, in Johannesburg, in Mogale City, in Mfuleni, in all municipalities of Gauteng, in KwaZulu-Natal. They want the IFP out of all municipalities. They are essentially saying that the relationship between the two has broken down. The IFP does not want to give the EFF an opportunity to also gain governance experience, and they are running KwaZulu-Natal as if it's their own fiefdom and as if the EFF has no role to play. Going as far as to saying that EFF deputy mayors in KwaZulu-Natal are just given fancy titles and given bodyguards, but have no functions or responsibilities in these municipalities. For instance, in Umhlathuze, the deputy mayor of that particular municipality is the EFF provincial secretary in KwaZulu-Natal. He's got no role to play in that specific municipality. In the words of EFF leader Julius Malema, was saying that the time of all opposition political parties using the EFF as a fodder, as a stepping stone, as a ladder towards them gaining governance and EFF getting nothing is over, saying that they are going to chop the arrogance of the Democratic Alliance, of the EFF, of the IFP, and all other smaller parties and opposition parties that have practically, in the words of Malema, used the EFF over the past 2 local government elections to gain government and give the EFF nothing.
Look, I think this gives expression to the saying that coalition governments can be shaky at most times. Do we know at this point who the EFF is likely to be working with in the absence of the IFP?
Prior to the vote of no confidence against Mayor Tanya Campbell in Ekurhuleni last year that was pushed by the ANC caucus, there were negotiations between the ANC and the EFF for the ANC to take Johannesburg. EFF takes Ekurhuleni. Whoever takes executive, the other will take the legislative arm of the municipalities, which is council. And there's discussions afoot as well to work with other political parties in Tshwane, in Mogale City, in all other municipalities, and also in KwaZulu-Natal. The ANC and the EFF are currently working together in the eThekwini municipality. The EFF has the Municipal Public Accounts, MPAC, and the ANC has the executive. Even now, the council sitting that took place during the course of the week had to be collapsed because of the ongoing negotiations between the ANC and the EFF, which means that the ANC now wants government. For instance, in KwaZulu-Natal, in the last negotiations that were ongoing, the ANC and the EFF, there was discussions over the Amajuba district municipality and the Newcastle municipality and Danhauser local municipality, where the ANC was saying to the EFF, you take the urban metro, the urban municipality rather, which is the Newcastle municipality, the ANC takes Danhauser, and ultimately the ANC takes Amajuba district municipality. Those are the ongoing discussions between the two parties, which hit a snag when the ANC in Ekurhuleni refused to vote for Nkululeko Dunga to be the mayor of Ekurhuleni. Now the discussion and the resolution that has been taken by both these parties and smaller parties like Al Jamaa, Patriotic Alliance, was to say the mayorship of these big metros must go to smaller parties. For instance, you saw the election of the Al Jama councillor, who is now effectively the executive mayor of the city of Johannesburg. In Ekurhuleni as well, the minority party is going to be the mayor of that specific municipality, with the EFF taking speaker and the ANC taking chief whip through Chongizizwe Nhlabathi, who is the ANC leader in council and also the acting regional chairperson of the ANC in Ekurhuleni. So these are the various discussions taking place. Ultimately, you'll also see the ANC and the EFF working together in Mogale City to remove the Democratic Alliance mayor, and ultimately cascading to all other municipalities within the Gauteng province, but also in KwaZulu-Natal. This is where these two parties are going to be working together. For instance, there is a vote of no confidence against the IFP mayor in Umkhanyakude district municipality. This is where the ANC is trying to court the EFF as well for the two parties to work together, and also to work together in Mtuba local municipality. So there is a newfound working relationship between the ANC since its 55th National Conference and the EFF, and with the emergence of Fikile Mbalula as the Secretary General of the ANC, you can see that there is seemingly some sort of synergy between these two former leaders of the Youth League, former allies in the ANC, that are now saying, we are one block. For instance, to take Begum Tolo, speaking during an ANC press briefing in KwaZulu-Natal, he said that there are two divides in the eThekwini Council. There is one that is pro-black and one that is pro-white. And the IFP has seemingly ditched the core that is pro-black and decided to go and work with the Democratic Alliance. Hence, you are seeing where the IFP is dominant in a ward, the DA does not contest. The DA tells its voters to vote for the IFP. That happened in Amazimtoti recently in a by-election where the IFP beat the ANC. You go to the Moses Mabhida region as well, where there was a by-election in the Msunduzi municipality in the Northdale area, where the IFP was not on the ballot paper. The DA was on the ballot paper. IFP people voted for the Democratic Alliance. So the AFF is essentially saying, we cannot give you our votes for you to go and give power to the Democratic Alliance and work with the Democratic Alliance whilst you don't scratch our backs. Coalition governments are all about, you scratch my back, I scratch yours.
Interesting dynamics there, Sam. So let's narrow it down back to the EFF plenum. Take us through some of the core issues there that came out of there.
The EFF is turning a decade old this year, the July 26 the August 26 movement, and they're inspired by the July 26 movement. They are essentially saying that it is time for them to take stock of where the EFF comes from. The EFF, they say, was formed out of the blood, out of the sweat of those whom were butchered and gunned down in Marikana in that massacre where 34 miners lost their lives. Prior to those 34 miners losing their lives, 10 other NUM miners and also police officers and security guards also lost their lives as well, which is a total bloodshed, saying that this is where the EFF bore and was born from, through the ancestral roots of these people whom lost their lives in that Marikana massacre, saying that they represent the dejected masses of the country whom are excluded financially, whom don't have land, whom are fighting for economic prosperity within the country. So they are saying this is the year for them to take stock. This is the year for them to prepare for the 2024 general election in the country, and saying that they are going to be using this year to gain experience in government, not as deputy mayors, but as MMCs, as mayors, in order for them to show their offering to the electorate in 2024. They are saying that they are not going to rely on a voter database and voter base that is done by the IEC, that the EFF has not been practically involved in getting people to go out and register to vote. So they are saying they are using their 1 million membership drive that they have been ongoing for the past year to make sure they go back to those people who have signed up as members of the EFF and make sure that they are registered as voters, but also appealing to the youth to have an apathy of politics, to have an apathy of electoral politics in South Africa, saying they are going to go back to the youth to say, go and register to vote in order for you to see the change that you want, in order for you to see the 7 cardinal pillars of economic freedom in our lifetime being achieved through the EFF. So they are saying they are going on a full force drive, going wall to wall, door to door, all corners of South Africa, to make sure that they make a meaningful dent to the ANC majority in the 2024 general election, and they bring the ANC below 50%. You can already see with the various coalition discussions ongoing, the reconfiguration of these coalitions, predominantly black political parties now aligning and working with one another, particularly the ANC, the EFF, Patriotic Alliance, and all the other smaller political parties, that they are in essence trying and hatching a deal that may be achieved for 2024. Nkululeko Nyathi, the Democratic Alliance youth leader, today speaking, saying that in 2024 they are going to be defeating a coalition of the ANC and the EFF, which tells you that the Democratic Alliance Federal Council and Federal Executive has shut the door on any working relationship with the Economic Freedom Fighters, the EFF, and they're on the back foot. They've got no other choice now but to reach out to the African National Congress. And one wonders what the ANC will do, because effectively the ANC has no coalition document that guides how they get into these coalition governments. They are, at this currently, all they do is find a finder. And they have, even in the NEC meeting, I'm told, that Tebinka Dimeng, the Deputy Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, was raising this issue, that an NEC member now, that the governing party has no formulated discussion document and policy resolutions from conference that will guide how they get into coalition governments. And also the EFF as well. We've not seen a discussion document or a policy document of the EFF on how they work in constituting coalition governments. What you see from these political parties is when the electoral results come out, they go negotiate in a corner somewhere in some boardroom, come up with contracts, they sign those contracts, but those contracts are not legally binding. That is the issue, and that is one of the reasons why the Patriotic Alliance is able to get in and out of the DA coalition arrangements in any manner that it wants. For instance, after the 2016 local government elections, the IFP was in a coalition with the Democratic Alliance here in Gauteng. But when that coalition broke down with the resignation of Herman Mashaba, the IFP went in bed with the ANC coalition, then led by the late Jeff Makubu, ultimately the late Jolidi Matongo, and ultimately the late Mpho Moerane, who ultimately lost after elections, and the now booted and ousted mayor of Johannesburg, Mpho Phalatse, came in. But these coalitions, there's no binding compact. There is no threshold as well for what percentage you need in order to be able to get into the executives, which are some of the discussions that now parliamentarians are starting to discuss, to say we need to regulate this thing of coalitions, because tomorrow Samkele Maseko will be maybe the mayor of Tshwane. But tomorrow, there's a vote of no confidence against Samkele, and Mxolisi comes in as the mayor with one seat in council. Is that fair that one party with one seat decides and dictates to the majority? So those are the discussions that are now taking place, and ultimately you will see going forward. But it all boils down to the proportional representation system that is currently being used, and how small parties are now becoming kingmakers in these electoral politics and in governance.
Samkele, very interesting, and that's a very big mouthful there that you've said around this. I want to know what really led to this collapse of this coalition government in Joburg.
Coalition government in Joburg collapsed because you've got a pact and that is there between the DA and the IFP. The EFF in the past 2 weeks has been engaging the leadership of the IFP to say, vote with us in Johannesburg because we voted with you in KwaZulu-Natal. But the IFP could not break the compact it has with the Democratic Alliance. And thus the EFF says, well, if you can't scratch our back, why must we continuously scratch your back? Hence, that relationship broke down. So for the past 2 weeks, I know Bonkosi Dlamini, the provincial chairperson of the IFP in the province, has been engaging with the EFF leadership, also engaging with the IFP leadership nationally to see if the IFP can work in this new coalition that is being hatched in Johannesburg, in Gauteng rather. But it was not meant to be. The IFP leadership simply refused and said, we've got a compact with the Democratic Alliance, we're sticking to that compact, as all political parties are building towards the 2024 general election. But you can also see that some political parties are now saying, okay, you can see that a compact is being formed on the other side. What are we doing? What are we forming? Hence, these negotiations now taking place. For instance, The EFF has majority votes in various councils than the Patriotic Alliance. But the Patriotic Alliance has more power in the executives than the Economic Freedom Fighters. What broke down in the coalition government of the Patriotic Alliance, the Democratic Alliance, and the discussions that were taking place with all those parties, and Action SA, the Patriotic Alliance in Joburg wanted 2 MMCs. The DA was refusing to give Patriotic Alliance 2 MMCs, saying they were going to give Patriotic Alliance 1 MMC, and they were going to give them 1 chairperson of a committee.
Yeah.
This is where the relations broke down, and Patriotic Alliance then swinged to where they may have gotten more seats that they had desired in the executive. For instance, the DA mayor in Ekurhuleni, Tanya Campbell, woke up and fired about 4 months ago in Ekurhuleni, fired Patriotic Alliance MMCs. And that proved that that relationship had broken down, and the Patriotic Alliance had already clinched a deal with the ANC and the EFF in Ekurhuleni. But the conundrum in Ekurhuleni, the ANC and the EFF don't need the smaller parties, don't need the DA. They need just those 2 parties. If those 2 parties vote together, they have the majority in Ekurhuleni. But they have also approached the minority parties in order to clinch a deal, because the ANC does not want to give the EFF mayorship. The EFF is saying, if you don't give us mayorship through Nkululeko Dunga, our provincial chairperson and councillor in Ekurhuleni, then we will not give Dada Murero Johannesburg. Hence, he was a mayor for 25 days, and ultimately now he never came back, and they elected the Aljama councillor. So political parties, it's all about what we get and what we can give. And it's not about Nkulisi. It's not about someone in Orange Farm in an informal settlement. It's not about someone in Tembisa who's sitting in an informal settlement who's load shed. It's all about what they can get now in order to try in isiZulu, to try and lure you and get you closer and show you what they can do in governance so you can give them their vote.
Sam, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for breaking everything down for us right here on the agenda. That's SABC News senior political reporter Samkele Maseko, just giving us analysis of everything that has been happening on the political front.